We are back in. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Beyond Condition podcast, where Steff and I are going to be delving into, well, one main subject of basically competing and being a bodybuilder on the go, but also talking a bit about international travel as well. And, things like food ideas so you can stay on track. And, a lot of clients I come across that have something like a weekend away, the automatic response is, well, it's all going to be meals out and I can't stay on track. But actually, as we know, that's not the case.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just this general notion of that when you go into prep, life stops doesn't need to necessarily be the case at all. And it's just finding ways of managing your time. Obviously, one of the biggest things we'll probably talk about is preparation is so key during the prep. So making sure that you just plan ahead, thinking about, what facilities you have access to, if you're going out with friends, etc. Have you got your things with you? Do you have all the little tips and tricks that we all pick up as, contest prep athletes whilst we're moving about? I mean, I'm sure your bag's the same as mine, Sarah. Sweeteners, flavor drops, all the rest of it, which I'm sure we'll go into as to what you've got in your bag when you're moving about.
Yeah, for sure. And even like one of Matt's clients the other day was going to a festival, and I was like, right, tell him to pack tins of tuna, tins of pineapple. You can even get because he's in an off-season phase, so you've got like rice pudding in a tin, like all of these things that are similar to what we'd have at home, but obviously, out of a tin it's going to be more processed and what have you, but it's still an option to stay on track, and it's really, really easy as long as you are prepared.
Yeah, 100%. And there's like a lot of like things you can do if you're traveling in a car, or if you, like, for example, I'm sure we'll go into it again, like Angie and I did a video on prep on the road, which you can go see on our YouTube. But this week we talked a lot about like plug-in fridges, which you can put in your car.
So good.
Such a good idea when you're in the car. Obviously, to save space, instead of using tons of Tupperware, you can use Ziploc bags, like really good sturdy ones that you can get now. Things that make sense when you're trying to move around and trying to travel on the road. And also, things like plug-in fridges are great for hotel rooms. You can do the same with like small appliances, like small little mini microwaves you can take with you. You can do the same with, like, I have a really cool foldable set of scales which fit in my handbag there, and they open up. They're called tri-scales. They're like a little triangle that just flips out. And you can use those as your weighing scales without having to take like a full square, calibrated scale with you. So these are all little tips and tricks that you can pick up along the way. And then, of course, traveling on a plane, slightly different, which we'll go into as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you say about the fridge. I hadn't really thought of that before. And then my stepdad had one that it also plugs in USB to his car. And he was like, oh, do you want to take it when you compete at the Arnold's? And we were like, oh, that's a good idea. And what we decided to do was plug it in the night before at home before we left, and then just had it in the car because it was hard to connect it up to the USB with all the other packages we had. And then it held really nice and cool. And then when we got to the hotel, plugged it back in, and then on show day had it back in the car. So we were sort of keeping it cool in between. And it was really nice to just be able to have fresher food on show day as well, depending on what you're having. Because it was an expo straight after I had a meal to have that was like rice and chicken. But it's so much nicer if it's kept nice, because you know what it's like with meat and stuff. You're always a bit like, is it going to turn?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the beauty of having something like that if you're going to be staying in a hotel room or somewhere that's not an apartment base. Because a lot of the time, if it's only a one night stay and you want to keep it on the cheap, a hotel room's a lot easier. And that's where things like that appliance can come in so handy. But yeah, they are a godsend. I mean, we've used them all over the place. Traveling all over the UK, my goodness. Literally. And then, of course, things like just the type of Tupperware you're using. It's really important as an athlete. If you're going to do this, you need to invest in really good Tupperware. I mean, in my opinion, the best type of Tupperware is obviously your glass Tupperware, with the lids.
I like this, yeah.
It's so heavy and it's so clunky to take around with you, and it can be quite, like, obviously it's not very malleable, so that only fits in one area and that's it. But they do keep your food so fresh. And of course, you're not then worrying about, if you're somebody who's environmentally conscious, which I am a little bit, is obviously the plastic that's actually infiltrating some of the chemicals that you get from the plastic in your foods, which, I mean,
I quite like this.
yeah, you can get EPA plastics. You can get obviously eco-friendly plastics that say and claim they don't do that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, obviously the Tupperware is key that you get stocked up on that and get some really good stuff, which
Yeah,
still yet to find, by the way, because I don't think Tupperware is all that great.
I always find if I'm doing like I don't know if you're similar, but when I'm going away for a show or like a bodybuilding weekend, because there's so many Tupperwares, sometimes I just go into like Poundland as a one-off and get like 10 of the sort of ones you get from the Chinese, and then I can throw them away as I go. And I don't like, wasting stuff and throwing away as much, but sometimes you go away with so much stuff, and if you're going to be buying stuff at an event or whatever, it's like, where am I going to fit all this stuff? And it's really easy to throw it as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's it. Everyone's going to have their own method to this, aren't they? And it's funny because I think I've struggled over the years to find Tupperware that keeps kind of good. They do tend to kind of get they're not very easy to wash. They don't take well to dishwashers. Guys, listen to me. If any of you know Tupperware out there and you want to hit this girl up, please tell me, because it's so bizarre. Like I've often found like maybe one or two brands here or there that last a little bit longer than others. But the reality is, if you're using Tupperware as much as we do, which is on the daily, you're probably likely going to have to refresh your Tupperware every 3 to 6 months, I'd say, if you want really good Tupperware all the time. Otherwise, you're then just having, I mean, I've got some pretty sad looking boxes in my cupboard right now.
Isn't it funny as well? You always lose lids, and it's like, where have the lids gone?
But then you have the cupboard, right? And who can relate to this? You've got the Tupperware cupboard, and it is just, you don't even want to go in it. You're like, this is going to be a nightmare. There's just lids everywhere and plastic tubs, and no lid fits properly on any one bloody tub. You end up like, you take one tub out and all the tubs cascade out at the same time. It's like one of my nightmares. 2 things I don't like, guys: Tupperware and coat hangers. Both of them are in the same. I just absolutely hate. They just have a little world of their own. It doesn't matter where you put them in, anything. They just fire out at you like left, right, and center. So yeah, the Tupperware cupboard is legit a problem for me. It's
like cutlery as well. Like I always use a long handled teaspoon when I eat. So like if I forget to pack it, I'm like, we've got a disaster on our hands here, because you know how you get used to like little quirky things as a bodybuilder.
I know, like I've got a couple of little things like that myself as well. You get into kind of little habits and rituals and routines and things that like you have to have a certain way, whether it's like the teaspoon, for example, or I think a lot of people will relate to the mini spoon eating your oats, because your oats get like, your bowl gets so much smaller and your quantities get so much smaller that if you eat with like a baby spoon, it makes you feel amazing. It lasts so much longer. These sorts of things are key. I mean, other travel little tips there, we spoke about it earlier, but everywhere I go, I'm actually sat in one right now. I'm in a Starbucks. They still have access to, all your sweeteners, your little like stirrers, all those sorts of things. Wherever I go, just grab a handful of sweeteners. I have them in pretty much every bag, every pocket, every single thing that you've got, ready to just have at a whim for your black coffees or your porridge or whatever else you put it on. The same with flavor drops or little like additions if you want that. And also like herbal teas. I'm always carrying around in my bag mint teas, chamomile teas, just some tea bags here and there, so that when you're maybe getting that little bit of a itch and you need something to curb it, you've got like a nice hot drink there if you need it. These are little tips. Have you got anything else? Yes, salt, of course.
Yeah, I always find that, because we mentioned it one pod before, I always have some sort of whey protein available somewhere, just in case I do get caught. As we know, protein feedings every, say, 2, 3 to 5 hours is key for many of us that commit to this lifestyle. And then if I can, I'll always have, some sort of, if I know I'm on a travel day, depending on what point I'm at, whether it's prep or off season, I have some sort of fruits available if I can that are going to keep okay. And, if most places you can get either before you leave, or if you can scout it out on your route, things like bags of salad, you know, really easy wins. And I find, especially when traveling and I'm quite busy, I can have, you know, something like chicken salad on the go and chicken and veg, and that keeps me going and I don't feel too food focused. And then I can, when I arrive at the destination, sit down and have a nice meal. But just little things like, you know, having your appliances, having your cutlery, your Tupperware, your condiments, all of those things in like one bag and always having it with you, it totally makes sense, because it just takes the potential stress out of traveling if something was to go wrong while you're en route.
Yeah, 100%. It's all these little things, and they do become really important to you, because you know that that's the way that you can enjoy your food, and you've got them all there. So that makes sense. Traveling on the road is obviously one thing. Flying, traveling, international travel is something a bit different. And if you've never done any international travel for a contest before, the first time you do it, I think, is probably like everything, you're the most anxious about it, because you're worrying about customs, you're worrying about what you can get through. Obviously, you've got specifics you're allowed in your case, what you aren't allowed in your case. So there's those sorts of thoughts there, and then it's finding out where you are at the other end and navigating foreign foods, foreign stuff as well. So where should we start with that?
Yeah, because that's because I competed a couple of times abroad and they were both different. So Mexico and Portugal, it's quite an open can of worms, as it were, because you sometimes don't know till you get to the destination what's going to be available. And I think that we all probably assume sometimes that things like chicken, white fish, these types of produce would be available in most countries. Actually, I found, particularly when we went to Mexico, they had a lot of like the salt cured fish, and they had like salamis and red meats, and there wasn't even like, we couldn't find eggs in most of the shops, and all of the things that would contribute to a peak just weren't available. They had like a lot of cheeses and stuff like this, and luckily I had packed things like tins of tuna, whey protein, this type of things, and then we found some eggs so I could have egg whites. But again, on a peak, you know, ideally you don't want to be putting in foods that you haven't had for a while, or brand new foods, because that could really blow out the physique, as we know, combined with travel. So I definitely say for people that can, you know, pack things like your carbohydrate sources like rice cakes, jam, packet rice, because hopefully, you know, if you can get access to a microwave, easy things like that, your oats, if you have them, you know, in peak week, all of the easy stuff that you can take. If you get on okay with things like tuna, that's really easy to take with you, and it's on the leaner side, which is, most people are keeping the fats down on a peak. Obviously there is fat loading processes, but generally, you know, when you're getting closer to the show and you're there, it's going to be your leaner meats that you're looking for, and anything you can think of that's okay to go in your suitcase.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that. I mean, I think a couple of times that I've traveled, rice cakes are always in my suitcase, always, because whenever you travel to a foreign country, especially like American stuff like that, you can get your hands on plain ones, but you've just said you've hit the nail on the head. Usually in these countries, there's so much more choice, and a lot of them are flavored or have extra salt or have extra like sucrose or sweeteners or whatnot. So if you are going to have something staple in your peak that is you're able to take, that's obviously a dry or a tinned food, etc., then pop it in your case and just take out any kind of concerns for what you might have to go and find. Easy things, obviously, when you're abroad, usually are to find, you know, raw meat that you're going to cook or whatnot. But it's the other stuff like you've just said. It's things like that are impacketed stuff.
It's like rice cakes. You think, why can't I find normal rice cakes?
I mean, yeah, even when I've been in, like, I've competed in the States 3 times, and every single time you go to the States, you think you get everything. You walk into Whole Foods and there's probably about 2,000 packs of rice cakes standing in front of you, and all of them are flavored and not one is plain. You know, it's like, where's also the plain ones in this haystack?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, it's also worth mentioning, especially for the States, I'd imagine, like a lot of people that are competing internationally for the first time, or even if it's further down the line, you know, I'm lucky enough not to be swayed by food focus when I'm in a prep or when I'm
Mhm.
competing and what have you. But if food focus is a worry of yours, or, you know, if seeing certain foods can trigger you to want to eat them and potentially fall off your diet, as it were, that's going to be, you're in a really hypersensitive state, aren't you? So this could be a real recipe for, you know, disaster, as it were, because it can be quite a scary place. You're in a country, you're going to compete internationally, which is big, and then you're faced with food. And if that's a problem, that could, you know, really lead to troubles for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think like just got to again be super, super prepared. I think the thing that most people get stressed about is that going through the customs with your 6-pack bag or your ISO bag or whatever, and you've got well, first of all, you can't take ice blocks. So it has to be like the ice, like almost like, you know, ice compresses that you put on your joints, because they work.
Yeah.
But if you take an actual ice block in your 6-pack bag, they'll all be taken off you. So that's like one thing. The next thing is anything with liquid, anything is not going to go through. So I think, you know, you've got to just be really mindful, like that everything should be in just dry baggies, you know, Ziploc bags. I think potatoes you can like just put in your Ziploc bags and put them in there, label them. Dry oats can go in there. And rice, you got to be careful with rice, because it's, you know, if there's any water fluid within like the boxes and stuff like that, they can be really sensitive as well. You can take rice if it's cooked and it's dry, you know, but if you know what I mean, if you've got any like additional condensation, I've had rice, which I think is perfectly okay, taken off me before. So it's just like, you might have to think about switching your carb sources to something that's dry, like potatoes or oats or rice cakes or whatever, for the duration of your travel. If say you're traveling for 24, 48 hours. So it's something that you can take in your 6-pack bag through custom, easy peasy, and they're not going to take it off you. And then supplements as well. You need to make sure they're all packed, that they're labeled. You're not like taking just a whole clear bag of pills through custom.
Powders.
Yeah.
Normally you can take pretty much whatever you want in your main luggage, can't you, if it's going on the aircraft? Hand luggage, we got that for Mexico. Some of the guys had cooked chicken and put it in Tupperwares and had it in their hand luggage, and that got confiscated, whereas I had it wasn't ideal for, you know, where I was at and about to go into a peak, but I had to have like these Taste Inc chicken fillets that they're like the vacuum packed ones, and you were allowed them, so I could eat them on the plane, you see, and then I had some whey protein. So I know that they sit okay for me, so it was all right. But again, if you haven't tried, that can sometimes, you know, that could cause a problem with, you know, how you react to different types of meat. So it's ideal to try these things before, if you know you're going to be traveling internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny because when you're in prep head, you know, you're thinking about the water that you've got to get. And usually a lot of the times that I've been abroad, you know, you're waiting to get through security so you can go get your water in the other side of the airport. But it's so easy to bring your water with you. I've done this as well, to bring your water with you to the airport and then think, shit, can't take this through. And then suddenly you're just wasting like 2 liters of water, whatever, or how much ever water. You're trying to glug as much of it down before you go to security. It's just a nightmare. So, you know, you've got to think pre-security, wherever you're going from, limit every liquid possible and then just get it in the departure area. Like, because it's just not worth the stress of it all. You know, it's just like, you just have to be clear head, simple hand luggage, nothing that's going to stop you. Obviously, making sure that if you've got forks and stuff like that, ideally they're plastic, they're not metal. Just because the thing is, they won't take a fork off you, right? Even if it's steel, but it could stop through the security area, and that will stress you out. So you just want the least stress possible. So just think plastic cutlery. All of your stuff is easily packed. There's nothing in your hand luggage that's going to cause them a problem. And just keep yourself calm and accountable, and think about it. Be smart, as I say, before you go through.
Because of course, you know, a lot of everything with competing, I always sort of go back to this analogy, is you control the outcome. It's like being judged at shows and how you place. It's like traveling internationally to compete. It's like a lot of things that go into bodybuilding, the outcome is controlled by you, and you can only control the controllable. So of course, if you're prepared and you're ready for this, and you've thought of all of these things, like you say, you know, cutlery, you can't take metal cutlery, that's going to be taken, all these little things, you know, the outcome is going to be a good outcome because you've prepared for it, you've checked the rules, and you're ready for it. Whereas if you're not, then the outcome's going to be stress. It's going to be potentially effects to your physique that you can't then control because you just completely stress yourself out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's really fun traveling on prep. It is, because it's somewhere you're going. It's really good fun. You're prepping everything together, but it does leave a lot of room for error. So you just need to take your time, be methodical in your approach, think about what you're doing. Don't get yourself wound up about things. You know, remember that there's always shops about. You're never going to be stuck like where you don't have anything at all. You can go get something if you've not brought it with you. But just that initial bit through an airport or in a car or whatever, you just want to make it easy. So these are all some key things. And if anybody else has, like, you know, ideas on what people should do whilst they're on prep, or little pointers, then you should let us know, because I'm sure we've missed some things out. But on the other end, something I was going to say is, I know I've been with people where we've gone and stayed in, like, you know, the Hyatt in Miami, and their ground floor has microwaves on tap for people to do all of that kind of stuff. You know, the States hotels are great. They always have microwaves in their lobbies and stuff like that, which is amazing. But you know, I've also been away where we've all grouped together as a team. We did this actually at the WNBF Worlds last year in Las Vegas, and a few of the team grouped together and bought an air fryer and a microwave together, and they all chipped in like a $5, because it made sense for them all being there 3 or 4 days. They all used it together, and then they donated it to charity at the end. So, like,
Oh, that's
you know,
such a good idea.
Yeah, it's such a great idea, because then you're with people, you've all got access to it, you're all getting a good use out of it. It's worth $5, you know. It's like worth doing, because then you've got everything in someone's room. You're all then getting your stuff together, and there's no stress. You're in the same place. So if you don't have access to, you can still go and buy these appliances in a foreign country. You just might not be taking them home at the end of the day. If you can group together, then that's my idea. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, for sure. And it also, you know, transfers over to, you know, Gen Pop clients or people that aren't competing in their traveling internationally. Like I said near the start, a lot of people sort of, I guess, if they're going away, whether that's in the UK or if they're going on holiday, think that they can't stay in control of their nutrition and their training and their fitness journey. And there's so many little hacks that you can incorporate when you go away that you learn over the years as a bodybuilder, as you know, Steff, that make it so that you can stay on track and you don't have to fuck up all your progress just by going on holiday for 4 or 5 days, you know? Yeah. So when you go on, you know, a holiday or a break away, it's that automatic response to think, oh, well, I'm going away, so don't need to worry about anything. And I'll worry when I get back. And you can do quite a lot of damage there, depending on what you want your outcome to be from the holiday. I've been on holidays where I've thought, do you know what? I really don't mind putting on a bit of weight here. When I get back, I'll, you know, pull it back for a few days and that will wash it off, and then I'll be back on track. But if you're, you know, partway through your fitness journey, you're fairly new to going on holiday when you're tracking things like nutrition, you don't have to throw away all of your progress just by going on holiday.
No, not at all. In actual fact, I see it as quite an enjoyable experience to feel really good and confident in my own skin when I'm on holiday. I mean, what's nicer than going off the back of like a contest prep? You're kind of still got a little bit of glow about you. You've got the tan on. You know, I remember doing the BFAC Worlds with my first pro show in 17. And I was in Miami. I was down on Miami Beach, ripped to shreds in a red bikini, loving my life. And I've got some of the coolest photos ever, just because you're like, I have worked so damn hard to look the way I am. Now it's not about this. I've done the stage bit. Now it's about me just rocking this body that I've worked so hard for and just loving it. you know, having a great time on the beach in Miami. I mean, what else are you going to do when you're going and traveling abroad, doing these sorts of things? Like, you've got to revel in it and just enjoy all that hard work in different ways, and not let the stage be the be all and end all to the whole season and what you're doing.
When you are on holiday, you know, there's definitely, I find, a mentality at times where if it's all inclusive, you think that you have to eat large every breakfast, lunch, dinner, and throughout the day. But something I like to do is choose one of the meals where I actually just go for some lean proteins, like, you know, you get the different hams, and then I have some fruit with that, and then I'll have a bigger lunch and dinner, or a bigger breakfast, and then have lighter lunch, and try and keep things like my steps up. If I want to train, depending on whether it's deload or training, I'll train as well, and just stay active. And, you know, you don't have to, because it's all you can eat, you don't have to eat until you're, you know, bursting at the seams. You can enjoy the palate experiences and your memories that you're creating while you're away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said there as well, because whenever I've been abroad, I've always switched my training up a little bit, even when I've been there. So I've usually taken like a week or so out. And the last couple of times I've competed abroad, I've gone straight to hot yoga, because every time you go to America, there's yoga, hot yoga, loads of stretching classes, like all that kind of stuff. That's my go-to. I love it. And it's not right, I'm going to smash myself training right now. It's I'm going to utilize the things that I don't have back home whilst I'm here, which is, you know, that kind of stuff. Bikram yoga, hot yoga, beautiful.
Yeah, of course.
Your body just like, woo.
Yeah, and we you know, we lead busy lifestyles, and something like your hot yoga, some of those sessions can be an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you know what we're like. It's hard to schedule in things for ourselves when we've got our clients and it's busy season. I'm in prep, you know, you're still training, and it's hard to go, right, I'm going to go somewhere, take however long to get there, do an hour and a half yoga, go home, and then switch off, because it's not always realistic. So when you go on holiday, it's an ideal time to do these things.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's just that sort of process of, after if it is the end of your season, this is my whole premise. I know I've spoken about this on pods before, but I talk to my clients about a wellbeing month. It's where we're going to be doing our training. Yes, we are going to be reversing out. Yes, we're going to be feeding ourselves and nourishing our bodies properly, nutritionally, but we're going to be nourishing our bodies in ways that are cathartic, holistic, well-being, focused on stretch, recovery, exploring like the joints in different ways to really allow us to open up and experience health, because we've not been in a place of health for such a long time. Although you think it, because you're training, it's a different thing. You've pounded and pounded and pounded your body for near on potentially a year. Your joints are screaming, even though you don't think they are.
Well,
and that's why, like, that recovery phase, well-being phase, whatever you want to call it, it's a recovery well-being one for me. It has to be about backing off and teaching yourself, slow down.
Yeah.
Let's rejig the goalposts. We're not gunning for a date anymore. We've got to slow down, appreciate our body and what it's done for us in this last year. Now we have to recover it, grow it, and feed it properly to actually successfully then accrue what we need to do in terms of progress going on. So these are all vital. Like, I swear by that. I swear by that being a massive component in my progress as an athlete as well. I don't think I'd ever have been able to get to the level I'm at muscularly wise if I didn't schedule proper recovery breaks between my seasons. I actually swear by it.
Yeah, for sure. I always find as well, you know, after, when it is the end of the season, so you've done your last show, you know, that's definitely it. There's normally always a sort of meal out that evening with your family and friends. And, you know, I like to have a good meal. You know, I don't want to restrict on that meal. So I don't eat now, you know, like at the start where I'd be eating and eating and eating and I didn't know when to stop. I can control that now, but I like to just look at a menu and go, this is what I want. And it's normally pretty much the same thing each show. And then the next day, I quite like to just have a protein shake or fast in the morning and just let, you know, the feelings process, just allow myself to think about the nice memories and palate experience from the night before, and allow myself to get a hunger back before I then eat again, because otherwise I find that if you don't sort of try and control it somewhere, it can easily spiral into days or weeks of a lot of food.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And I think, again, that comes back to the experience and the preparation of the mindset, what you want to feel after stage, etc. And it takes a while to get there. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like, I remember back to my first competing days, and I'm really looking forward to that. I remember my first international finals actually in 2015. I did my first international finals, and you know, the American buffet was where it was at. You know, that was the thing that everyone was talking about, excited about, and I really enjoyed that. And I remember thinking, like, I'm glad I enjoyed that, but you are either someone who's food focused or not. I've never been. That's not something that's like, I go the other way. If I'm emotional, I stop eating. That's the problem.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like a different thing. So it's like, some people, when they have those fuzz and feelings and whatnot, yeah, they go there, and obviously your body is wanting that. So if you are a person that is more heavily food focused and is stacking up all of those donut pictures and cookie pictures and buffet pictures and whatever else, you're someone who needs to do more work to think about how I'm going to approach those few days or the week, or of course lean on coach. And if you're international, part of this whole conversation about preparing for that is remembering that, yes, you've Googled and mapped out every restaurant in the vicinity of your show venue.
Yeah.
Choose one or two, and then just be mindful. You know, if you're going to go to Cheesecake Factory, go, but just go and enjoy it, and don't go
I
back
love that you put
25.
Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah.
I need to try that one day. It's definitely, there's so much merit in what you just said there about choosing a couple of places. And Matt and I, you know, I've been in prep, it would have been over 6 months by the time I did my last show, and we've had conversations, and I said to him, it's really nice because we're talking about the places that we'd like to go after the show, but I'm not food focused, like thinking, oh my god, I can't wait, I just want the show out the way, I want this food. It's like, it's really nice to sort of almost be talking about it and manifesting how nice it's going to be, because for me it's about me and him sitting down and having some really nice food. And we've actually chosen, like you say, 2 or 3 places. We've chosen 3 places, and we're going to, you know, do some training and traveling around to see those places, do a bit of, you know, protein modified fasting around it, and just be really sensible, and then get back to tracking my food. And I feel like it's a really nice sort of healthy mindset to be in, because I'd like to go for some meals, you know, but just to enjoy them, not to eat until I feel like I feel sick, or, you know, eat too much.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just being smart, people. It's being good, diligent, contest prep athletes. You know the score. You've been with us enough times on this podcast now. We do things the right way for y'all.
Also,
So,
to note with international, just be careful if you are competing internationally and that's your last show. When you then eat after that, try and give yourself a day's grace at least before traveling home, especially if it is somewhere like the States, because you can, you know, I've seen it in person, because of the carbohydrate intake just before flying, the swelling and things that can happen, it can be quite dangerous. So that's definitely something to consider. And then also traveling, maybe bringing the carbohydrates down when you travel is quite a good idea, because you can then, you know, make up for it when you land, or either side of that.
Yeah, and a good, just a sort of a counteract method for that, something that you should always have in your bag whilst traveling at any show, is your hydration sachets. So diarrhea, anything that's make sure you have a few hydration sachets in your bag, and that's going to be vital for long haul flights as well, by the way. So if you are going to be like going out, you know, on an 8 to 12 hour flight, or slightly less, anything between 6 and 12 hours really, you want to be keeping as hydrated as possible. I don't know what your protocols might be for water loading or not. On the way back, make sure you stay hydrated, because you will have filled your body up with lots of different things. Your sodium levels will be all over the shop. The hormones will be as well. Keep your hydration high, lots and lots of fluid. If you feel bloated, watery, swollen, drink more, and get those hydration sachets in you for sure.
And keep moving on the flight if you can. Things like flight socks all of these things, you know, what we've got to remember is if you're competing abroad, you've done a prep for, you know, however long that's been, your body's not in the healthiest of spots, and then you're suddenly loading carbohydrates, and then you're expecting to throw travel into that as well. I think that, you know, for me personally, I was so excited to compete internationally the first time that sort of counteracted, you know, being as smart as I could be, because I was just like, oh my God, I'm competing abroad. But you learn, you know, lots of things when you do that, and it is being smart, because travel, when you're in that malnourished state, as it were, can be, you know, you're very sensitive, so you can be quite vulnerable in that time when it's going away and coming back. So you need to consider both ends of that, not just going away.
Yeah, for sure. And the long haul, the flight socks are really important for anyone for compression. I get the tight ones. I actually get the full tights that go right up to your thighs. They're really uncomfortable. You're going to feel sweaty. You're going to feel disgusting, but they work. They're really good. And they do help. Just even if you're somebody who has like DVT that runs in the family, make sure you're wearing flight socks. Anybody who's long haul flight and you want to keep water tension and like swelling down to a minimum, wear your flight socks. And keep really, 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 really warm on the flights as well. Like, because obviously the conditioned air is recycled, so you're constantly breathing in dry air. And when you're really, really lean and low body fat, you're gonna notice that nasally wise, congestion wise. You're gonna feel that in your skin, because you're just in a very depleted state, and nothing is quite as moistured as normal. Like, you don't even have the fat as well. Like, your collagen and everything is not even as healthy within your skin. So any dry air is going to be affected in terms of the body's like central nervous system. So just keep warm on a flight. That's something I forgot to say as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always the weird one with like flight socks, a blanket wrapped around me, and then I'm doing laps at any opportunity that possible. And people are like, but it is, you know, if I don't keep moving on a flight, I automatically feel that swelling start to happen, even with the flight socks. So, you know, if you know that you're prone to that, then it's definitely doing things like keeping moving. Don't worry about what anyone else is thinking about. Just do you.
Yeah, and also if you're someone who's water loading, which I have been on many of my international flights, and you're lugging it back, and they're asking you why the hell you want all the complimentary water bottles like on the flight, like just don't care to say to them, like, they know. You don't understand, guys, right? You've no idea how many airports actually get this. Like, you walk through security and they're like, oh, those bodybuilding types, like they see us a mile off. They know. So like, even on a plane, like even on a plane, they get it. Like, they do get it. So just you do your thing and keep to your plan. And
you know,
and don't get in your head. Don't get in your head about it.
Yeah, always find it's like you say, don't get in your head about it. If I communicate with the staff what I'm doing, I'm like, I know it's quite far-fetched, but I'm just going to tell you the situation. You know, I'm doing this. They actually quite like it, and they're like, have you got any photos? And if my mum's there, she's like, oh yeah, so, you know, Sarah, she does bodybuilding, and she goes into it all. But they actually quite like it. And then when you get off the flight, they're like, you know, have a really good show. And then I always find that they do, generally 9 times out of 10, they actually go above and beyond and come over and say, would you like any more water?
Yeah, do you help? Yeah.
I think they think it's cool. I think they think it's cool, you know.
Yeah, it's quite mainstream now. I mean, it's more and more common every day.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this episode would be really nice for people to just sort of, it's one of those ones when we say we drop the little bombs that, you know, when you listen to a podcast and little things keep in your mind and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of little tips in here, which is excellent. And it's a good one for just, you know, whether it's not now, but in future, you can always come back and listen to this one. And of course, we're always trying to cover every single area of the sport. And there's so much more that we can do there. So as always, like, guys, please drop us your suggestions, what you want us to talk about. And we'll keep coming up with the goods.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much, like you say, we can explore, but I think it's even more specific things that we've covered before that we could go into a little bit more. Anything like that, make sure you reach out and let us know, because we are here for it all, and it's really nice to still be having really positive feedback from you guys. So thank you for listening, and we will be back with the goods next week.
That's it. Cheers, Sarah. I'll speak soon.
Good to see you, Steff. Bye.
Bye, guys.